Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of podcasts with Ali and Aiza. I'm Ali, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Aiza. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ali. And hello to all our wonderful listeners out there. I'm actually really excited about today's topic because it's something I think almost everyone struggles with at some point in their lives. We're going to be talking about confidence. Specifically, how to appear and feel more confident, even when you're feeling nervous or unsure of yourself. This is such a practical topic, and I know our listeners will find tons of useful vocabulary and expressions they can use in their everyday English conversations.
Absolutely. And before we dive in, let me explain a couple of words we just used. When I said struggles with, that's a really common English phrase. To struggle with something means you find it difficult or challenging. For example, I struggle with waking up early in the morning, or many people struggle with public speaking. It's a great everyday expression that native speakers use all the time. And Aiza mentioned we'll find tons of useful vocabulary. Tons of is an informal way to say a lot of or many. You might hear someone say, there are tons of restaurants in this neighborhood, or I have tons of homework tonight. It adds emphasis and makes your English sound more natural and conversational.
Perfect explanation. Now, let me set the scene for today's discussion with a little scenario. Imagine you're at work, and your manager asks you to give a presentation to the entire team next week. Or maybe you're a student and you have to speak in front of your class. Or perhaps you're meeting your partner's family for the first time. What happens? For most people, their heart starts racing, their palms get sweaty, and they immediately think, oh no, I can't do this. That feeling of nervousness and self-doubt is completely normal, but the good news is that confidence is actually a skill you can develop. It's not something you're just born with. You can learn it, practice it, and get better at it over time.
That's such an important point to emphasize. Let me explain that phrase, self-doubt, for our listeners. When you have self-doubt, it means you don't believe in yourself or your abilities. You question whether you can succeed at something. It's that little voice in your head saying, what if I fail? Or, I'm not good enough. Native speakers often say things like, I'm filled with self-doubt, or, she overcame her self-doubt and went for it anyway. It's a common feeling, and being able to name it in English is really useful. Now, I want to share something interesting. There's a concept that really changed how I think about confidence. Think about this situation. You're getting on a boat for a trip, and the captain comes out looking uncertain, stumbling over their words, saying, and constantly looking down at their feet, and generally seeming unprepared. How would you feel? You'd probably want to get off that boat immediately, right? You wouldn't trust that person to safely navigate your journey.
Oh, that's such a vivid image. And you're absolutely right. I'd be terrified to be on that boat. Let me help our listeners with some vocabulary from what you just said. The word stumbling is really interesting. When you stumble over your words, it means you have difficulty speaking smoothly. You pause awkwardly, you might mix up your words, or you can't quite get the sentence out properly. We use this phrase all the time in English. For example, he was so nervous during the interview that he stumbled over his words. Or, I stumbled over the pronunciation of her name. It's a great descriptive phrase. And navigate, that's another good word. While it literally means to steer or direct a ship or vehicle, we also use it figuratively to mean dealing with a difficult situation. You might say, I'm trying to navigate my new job. Or, she's navigating a challenging conversation with her boss.
Excellent vocabulary breakdown. Now, here's the key insight. What if that same captain walked out, stood tall, made eye contact with everyone, and said in a clear, steady voice, welcome aboard. I'm Captain Martinez, and I'll be guiding us on this journey today. We're going to have a great trip. Same person, same situation, but completely different energy and presentation. That's what we're really talking about today. The physical and vocal choices you can make to project confidence, regardless of how you're actually feeling inside. And here's the really important part for our English learners. When you're speaking English, especially if it's not your first language, making these confident choices can actually make your English sound more fluent and natural, even if you're still learning.
That's such a valuable point. And I love how you connected it to language learning. I've noticed that when I'm feeling confident, my English just flows better. When I'm nervous, I make more mistakes and my accent gets stronger. So building confidence isn't just about presentations or meetings. It's directly connected to improving your English communication skills. Now let's break down some specific techniques that anyone can use. The first one is all about energy and volume. When you speak at a slightly louder volume than your normal speaking voice, not shouting, just projecting your voice a bit more, it automatically comes across as more confident. Think about it on a scale. If your everyday conversational voice is at level 3, try bringing it up to a level 5. That's not yelling or being aggressive. It's just having more presence in your voice.
I want to pause here and teach a phrase that Aiza just used, comes across as. This is super useful in everyday English. When something comes across as a certain way, it means that's how other people perceive it or interpret it. For example, she comes across as very friendly means people see her as friendly. Or, his email came across as rude, even though he didn't mean it that way. It's about how you appear to others, not necessarily what you intend. This phrase is everywhere in native English conversation, so definitely add it to your vocabulary toolbox. Now, back to this idea of speaking up. I know for many English learners, there's this fear of speaking too loudly or taking up too much space in a conversation, especially if you come from a culture where being quiet is considered polite. But in English-speaking contexts, particularly in professional settings in places like the United States or the UK, speaking clearly and at a good volume is expected and respected. It shows you're engaged, prepared, and confident in what you're saying.
That's a really important cultural note, Ollie. And it leads us right into the second technique, which is something I personally had to work on a lot, learning to pause. When people get nervous, they tend to speed up their speech, rushing through their words like they're trying to get it over with as quickly as possible. And when they do pause, they fill those pauses with filler words like, or. These little words are called verbal fillers. And while everyone uses them occasionally, using too many can make you sound unsure or unprepared. Instead, try to embrace the silence. Make strategic pauses. Pause between thoughts. Pause for emphasis on important points. Pause to let your words sink in. This does two things. First, it gives your listener time to process what you're saying, and second, it makes you look more thoughtful and in control.
Let me jump in with some vocabulary clarification here. When Aiza said, "let your words sink in," that's a fantastic idiom. When something sinks in, it means someone gradually understands or absorbs information. It takes time for them to fully grasp it. You might say, "when he told me the news, it took a while to sink in," or, "let me repeat that so it can really sink in." It's a very natural expression that native speakers use frequently. And speaking of pauses, here's a phrase you can use when you're speaking and you need a moment to think. Instead of saying, or, try saying, "let me think about that for a moment," or, "that's a good question, let me gather my thoughts." These phrases fill the space professionally while giving you time to collect your ideas. They make the pause feel intentional rather than uncertain.
Those are brilliant alternatives. Now, the third technique is something that might sound a bit silly at first, but I promise it works wonders. Think about how a superhero would stand or sit. Seriously, picture Superman or Wonder Woman. They stand tall, shoulders back, chest open, head up, making direct eye contact. Their posture radiates strength and capability. Now, you don't need to actually wear a cape or stand on a rooftop. That would be taking it too far. But adopting elements of that posture, even while sitting in a chair, can dramatically change how others perceive you and, surprisingly, how you feel about yourself. There's actually scientific research showing that our body language doesn't just reflect our emotions. It can actually create them. When you adopt a powerful posture, your brain starts to believe you're powerful.
That connection between body and mind is fascinating. Let me explain some phrases from what Aiza just said. She mentioned taking it too far. This means going beyond what's reasonable or appropriate. For example, "I like to plan ahead, but sometimes I take it too far and stress myself out," or, "he took the joke too far and offended people." It's about crossing a line or overdoing something. Also, Aiza talked about how body language can reflect emotions. When something reflects something else, it shows or mirrors it. Your facial expression might reflect your feelings, or someone's actions might reflect their values. And adopt, in this context, means to start using or taking on something. You can adopt a habit, adopt an attitude, or adopt a new approach. These are all very common uses of this versatile word.
Great explanations as always. Now, here's a practical tip that goes along with body language. If you're not sure whether you're presenting yourself confidently, try this. Record yourself on video. I know most people hate watching videos of themselves. I can almost hear our listeners groaning right now. But here's why it's so valuable. You get to see yourself the way your audience sees you. You might discover that you're slouching more than you realized, or that you're avoiding eye contact, or that you say, way more than you thought. Once you're aware of these habits, you can work on changing them. The phrase we use in English for this is self-awareness. Understanding your own behaviors, habits, and patterns. Developing self-awareness is key to improving any skill, including communication.
And that brings us beautifully to the fourth technique, which is practice. But not just any practice, purposeful, intentional practice. Let me explain what we mean by purposeful here. When something is purposeful, it has a clear goal or intention behind it. You're not just going through the motions, you're practicing with a specific aim. For example, if you're going to give a presentation, don't just read through your notes silently in your head. That's not effective practice. Instead, stand up, speak out loud as if you're really delivering the presentation, imagine your audience in front of you, click through your slides if you have them, and practice the whole thing from start to finish. Make it as close to the real situation as possible. And here's a great scheduling tip. Put your practice sessions in your calendar, just like you would any other appointment. Treat them as non-negotiable. If you have a week before your presentation, aim to practice the entire thing at least once per day.
I love that practical advice. And let me add something that really helps: break it into manageable pieces. Maybe you don't always have time for a full run-through. That's okay. Take just your opening and your closing. These are the most important parts anyway because they're what people remember most. And practice those 3 times in a row. You can do this anywhere. While you're in the shower, while you're walking to the bus stop, while you're making dinner. I actually do this all the time. And my family is completely used to seeing me wandering around the house talking to myself. The key is repetition. In English, we have an expression. Practice makes perfect. Actually, a more accurate version would be practice makes progress, because nobody's perfect, but the point is that the more you repeat something, the more natural and automatic it becomes.
That's such an important distinction. Practice makes progress, not perfection. And speaking of perfection, that leads us to the fifth and most powerful technique, which is something I call the inner dialogue, or your self-talk. Let me explain these terms. Your inner dialogue, or self-talk, refers to the conversations you have with yourself in your mind, those thoughts and messages you're constantly telling yourself throughout the day. For many people, this inner voice can be quite harsh and critical. Before a big presentation or important conversation in English, you might be thinking things like, what if I mess up? What if people don't understand my accent? What if I forget my words? I need to be perfect, or everyone will think I'm incompetent. These kinds of thoughts create anxiety and actually make it harder to perform well. The truth is, you're giving yourself an impossible standard. Nobody's perfect, and that's not a realistic or helpful goal.
Oh, Ollie, you've hit on something so important here, especially for language learners. That negative self-talk can be absolutely crippling when you're trying to speak in a second or third language. Let me share some vocabulary here. When something is crippling, it severely damages your ability to function or succeed. It's a strong word that emphasizes how serious the effect is. You might say, his fear of failure was crippling, or the company faced crippling debt. Also, that word incompetent that Ollie used, it means lacking the skills or ability to do something properly. If someone is incompetent, they're not capable or qualified. The opposite is competent, meaning skilled and capable. These are professional terms you'll hear often in work contexts. Now, here's the breakthrough. Instead of that harsh, critical voice telling you to be perfect, what if you chose a different message? What if you consciously decided what you want to tell yourself? This takes some reflection. Ask yourself, what do I actually want to achieve here? Why did I agree to give this presentation or have this conversation? What's my real purpose?
This is where it gets really practical. For example, maybe your deeper purpose is simply to help your audience understand an important concept. Or maybe you want to share information that could make their lives easier. Or perhaps you genuinely want to connect with people and build relationships. Whatever it is for you, turn that into a clear, positive statement that you can repeat to yourself. Here's an example. My goal is to help these people understand this topic as clearly as possible. Or, I'm here to share something valuable and I'm going to do my best. Notice how these statements are focused on your purpose and on others, not on your fear of judgment or failure. When you shift your internal message like this, something interesting happens. Your whole mindset begins to align with that positive intention. It doesn't magically erase all nervousness, but it gives you something constructive to focus on rather than spiraling into anxiety.
And here's the crucial part that many people miss. You need to practice this internal message just as much as you practice the words you're going to say out loud. It needs to become part of your routine, part of your preparation process. So when you're rehearsing your presentation 3 times, each run-through should include both the silent part, your chosen inner message, and the spoken part, your actual content. It might go like this. First you remind yourself silently, I'm here to help these people. Then you deliver your opening out loud. Then you repeat your inner message silently again. Then continue with the next section out loud. By linking them together through repetition, your positive self-talk becomes automatic and reliable. It becomes your mental foundation that supports everything else you're doing.
Let me teach an expression here, spiraling into anxiety. When you spiral into something negative, it means you get caught in a downward cycle where things get progressively worse. One anxious thought leads to another, and you feel like you're spinning out of control. It's a very descriptive phrase. You might say, don't let one mistake spiral into giving up entirely, or, the argument spiraled out of control. The image of a spiral going down captures that feeling perfectly. Now, I want to address something important. None of these techniques are about pretending to be someone you're not or putting on a fake personality. They're about making strategic choices in how you present yourself, choices that set you up for success. Think of it this way. When you have guests coming over to your home, you tidy up, maybe put on some nice music, prepare some food. You're not being fake, you're being a good host. You're creating an environment where your guests feel comfortable and welcome. It's the same with communication. When you use these confidence techniques, you're being a good host for your ideas and for your audience.
What a perfect analogy. And I think that's going to really resonate with our listeners because everyone understands the concept of being a good host. You're making your guests feel at ease so they can relax and enjoy themselves. When you speak with confidence, you're making your audience feel safe and comfortable so they can focus on your message rather than worrying about whether you're okay. It's actually a generous act. Let me add one more layer to this discussion that's particularly relevant for English learners. Sometimes when you're speaking English and you're not feeling confident, you might be tempted to apologize constantly. You might start sentences with sorry for my English, or I hope this makes sense, or excuse my accent. While it's natural to feel self-conscious, these apologies actually draw attention to the very thing you're worried about and can undermine your credibility. Instead, speak your message clearly and move forward. Most people are far less focused on your accent or occasional grammar mistakes than you think. They're listening to your ideas and your content.
Alright, now we're moving into the interactive part of our episode, where we want you, our listeners, to actually practice some of these concepts with us. First, let's work on speaking with energy and volume. I'm going to say a sentence and I want you to repeat it out loud, but bring your energy up to that level 5 we talked about. Remember, you're not shouting, just projecting clearly and confidently. Ready? Here's the sentence. I'm excited to share this idea with you today. Go ahead, say it out loud right now. Great. How did that feel? Did you notice a difference in your energy?
Perfect. Now let's practice the power of the pause. I'm going to say a short speech, but I'm going to rush through it without pausing. Then I'll say it again with strategic pauses. I want you to notice the difference and then try the second version yourself. Here's the rushed version. Hello everyone, thank you for being here today. I'd like to talk to you about a really important topic that affects all of us. I hope you find this information useful. Let's get started. Okay, now here it is with purposeful pauses. Hello everyone. Pause. Thank you for being here today. Pause. I'd like to talk to you about a really important topic. It's one that affects all of us. Pause. I hope you find this information useful. Pause. Let's get started. See how much more powerful that is. Now you try it, adding those pauses where I did.
Excellent work. Now let's practice that positive self-talk we discussed. Think about something you need to do this week that makes you nervous. Maybe it's a work meeting, a phone call in English, or a social event. Instead of focusing on your fears, I want you to identify your true purpose. What do you actually want to accomplish? Say it out loud as a positive statement. For example, my purpose is to clearly communicate my ideas, or I want to build good connections with these people, or I'm here to learn and grow. Take a moment right now and create your own positive statement. Say it out loud a few times. Notice how it feels different from thinking negative, worried thoughts.
We're coming to the end of today's episode, and I hope you found these techniques helpful and, more importantly, that you're ready to actually use them in your real life. Let's do a quick review of the 5 main strategies we discussed. First, turn up your energy and speak at a clear, audible volume. Aim for that level 5. Second, use strategic pauses instead of rushing through your words or filling every space with and Third, adopt confident body language. Think of the superhero posture and make the shape of a confident person. Fourth, practice with purpose by scheduling rehearsal time and making it as realistic as possible. And fifth, and perhaps most important, choose what you tell yourself. Replace harsh, perfectionistic self-talk with a purposeful, positive message about what you truly want to accomplish.
And remember, all of these techniques will probably feel a bit uncomfortable at first. That's completely normal. Anytime you're trying something new or pushing outside your comfort zone, there's going to be some awkwardness. But think about why you're doing it. You're not doing it for yourself alone. You're doing it to make your audience feel safe and comfortable. When you show up with confidence, even if it's learned confidence rather than natural confidence, you give people permission to relax and focus on your message. That's a gift. Also, I want to emphasize that being confident doesn't mean you'll never feel nervous. Even professional speakers, actors, and presenters feel nervous before big moments. The difference is they've learned to manage those feelings and to present themselves confidently despite the nervousness. You can do that too.
Before we say goodbye, I want to remind our English learning listeners of something important. Every time you practice these confidence techniques, you're not just becoming more confident, you're also improving your English. Speaking clearly and at a good volume makes your pronunciation easier to understand. Using pauses gives you time to think and construct better sentences. Standing tall and making eye contact helps you engage more naturally in conversations. And positive self-talk reduces anxiety, which means you'll make fewer mistakes and remember vocabulary more easily. So you're really getting double benefits here. Better confidence and better English. It's a win-win situation.
That's such an encouraging point to end on. So here's our challenge for you this week. Choose just one of these 5 techniques and commit to practicing it every single day. Maybe you'll work on speaking up, or incorporating more pauses, or standing with better posture, or rehearsing an upcoming presentation, or developing your personal positive self-talk message. Start with one, get comfortable with it, and then add another. Remember, confidence is a skill you build gradually, not something that appears overnight. Every small step you take is progress. Every time you push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone, you're growing and improving. We believe in you, and we're so proud that you're on this learning journey with us.
Absolutely. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you try any of these techniques, send us a message and let us know how it went. What worked well for you? What felt challenging? What surprised you? Your experiences might help other learners too. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with your friends, classmates, or colleagues who are also learning English. Learning together is always more fun and motivating than learning alone. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We truly appreciate each and every one of you who listens to our podcast. Until next time, keep practicing, keep pushing yourself, and remember, confidence looks good on you.
Thanks everyone, and have a great trip on your confidence journey. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.